The rear end jumped up so much, landed sideways, and right after him, I did the exact same thing, and then the whole thing just kept going. Who cares what it looks like? This might be the hottest thing in the motorcycle industry right now. They need a motorcycle with a bigger engine, with a larger frame. Hi, this is Andreja, and this is the Yamaha Tracer GT9 Plus. Yes, I didn't make a mistake. They're adding more and more letters and plus signs to this Tracer. Clearly, Yamaha is trying to get as much as possible, not just out of the Tracer, but above all from this frame and the CP3 engine. These will be my first impressions, because honestly, there's a lot of smart things happening in this motorcycle and a few not so smart ones. If you really want to know my opinion 100%, pick up an issue of Shuat Motorcycli or visit the website, The World of Motorcycles PL. And now I will tell you about my first impressions of riding this motorcycle. A motorcycle that is currently Yamaha's flagship touring model. And in my opinion, this is the biggest issue for this Japanese manufacturer, because the machine is packed with the latest technology. It's clearly a motorcycle for gadget lovers or for people who simply want to be as safe and as comfortable as possible while traveling. Because here on board we have a radar, a front camera, a rear radar that shows blind spots, an automated gearbox with the option for manual or automatic gear shifting, cornering ABS with a system that warns us about obstacles and assists us during braking. No, there is no emergency braking here. The motorcycle will not brake for you. This is very important for many people, but when it detects a threat, it first flashes this big screen at us. Today it turned out to be useful for a few people because we were riding on grippy roads, chickens were running out, and similar things happened, and we all agreed that the screen flashing is actually pretty cool, especially when you're looking at the navigation, admiring the mountains and so on. And at the moment when you really need to brake hard in an emergency, this system senses what's happening. There's this camera here, this radar. You hit the brakes. I always use just one finger, and you can feel how the motorcycle increases the pressure, but not in a way that's abrupt. It does it just the way you'd want it to happen. It's not like it intervenes and you don't know what's truly going on. So there's really a significant amount of smart technology here. These are advanced techniques, very clever techniques, but there's no engine and absolutely no frame. Well, it's right here, precisely in this spot. This is the CP3, which we know from the MT-07, now the R9. It has 119 horsepower and 90-something Newton meters of torque. There's a frame that we know very well. The frame has been slightly reinforced in a few spots so that this motorcycle can handle the greater loads from luggage and passengers. It weighs 230 kilograms by itself, which is much more than the MT-09. And it all works, but it really leaves quite a significant bit to be genuinely desired. Especially when we start looking at this particular motorcycle as a dedicated sport touring machine, because that's precisely how Yamaha officially presents it as a true sport touring vehicle, meaning a machine that's specifically supposed to give us exhilaratingly sporty thrills and impressive sporty performance, all contained within a comfortable and practical touring package. And the truth is that this engine, with these new emission standards, has clearly become just a bit weaker inside, which you don't feel at all. For example, in the MT-09, because that motorcycle is much lighter. And here, when we were riding in the mountains, climbing to high altitudes, suddenly you come out of a turn, you give it some throttle, and it hesitates. The same goes for riding on the highway. This motorcycle feels best at around 130, 140 kilometers per hour. At that speed, it doesn't roar, it rides nicely, it's stable, but above that speed, the engine starts to roar. The motorcycle becomes, a bit wobbly, just slightly unstable. And you pointed this out to me during previous Tracer tests, because, we always come to the mountains for tests and we're tearing through those corners, right, left, right, left, right, left. It's rare to actually get a chance to ride on the highway, especially at the kinds of speeds we ride at in Poland on the highway. And you are absolutely right about that. This motorcycle with the panniers on above 140 kilometers per hour, yes, there are always these small movements, which you can probably get used to and accept after some time. But the truth is, it feels better at a more relaxed pace. And the same goes for riding in the mountains. Because with this motorcycle, When we first set often, now I'm not criticizing the engine itself or its performance, because when you push it to the limit, it's fine. It goes, it accelerates. It's not like, this motorcycle is slow. It still has 120 horsepower. But what I mean is, that low and mid range of the revs, and the same goes for the frame and handling. When you start riding, you notice, oh, a big forest, I'll go for it. But this isn't the kind of motorcycle, it's not one of those machines that just dives into corners on its own, where you don't even have to think, you just look where you want to go and boom, 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 you're off. No, this motorcycle requires you to ask it, to use that famous counter steering. And at first, we got on and we were all like that. This is such a light little bike, just for cruising around, for taking it easy. After a few hours, because today we did over 320 kilometers, we rode this motorcycle for 9 hours, winding roads, stops, photos, and so on. Well, by the middle of the day, unfortunately, I had already gotten used to it, and it was like automatic. I just knew how much force to use to make the bike change direction. I'm just not very tired at all. Actually, I'm not tired at all. Even my butt doesn't hurt, because this new seat is really great. But just so you know, this bike simply requires, as they say in English, more rider input, meaning the rider has to be more involved to make it go fast through the corners. I'm touching the seat now, so I'll quickly mention that it's higher than the previous one, but narrower here at the front, so the arc, because I don't even know how to describe it in Polish. The arc of touching the ground is ultimately smaller than in the previous model, because it's narrower here, but as a result, the riding position is also a bit unique, since the seat really pushes you up against the tank. Once again, I don't feel tired on this machine, but it is quite specific. Once we got used to it, the motorcycle started to feel livelier. At a certain point, we really started riding in a very sporty way. I wanted to say at stupid speeds, because that's also true. We were riding at stupid speeds. I'm actually glad that the DJI camera didn't want to record for me today. All action cameras are crap. I'm just completely fed up with them. I switched from GoPro to DJI, thinking it would be great. Suddenly something goes wrong with the batteries and poof, that's it. I regret not showing you the screen, but I'll tell you about it in a moment. We were riding at stupid speeds, and I felt very safe on this machine because, first of all, I learned how to handle it properly. And secondly, and I have to give it credit for this, the suspension is fantastic. I've been a fan of Kayaba for some time now. Now I'm an even bigger fan. This is a semi-active suspension. Although, we can really change its settings only through the app. It's strange because here, through the motorcycle's computer, we can only change 2 automatic modes and 2 custom modes, which honestly, I don't even know what they do. In general, I've noticed that these riding modes, apart from rain, are actually quite similar to each other. But regardless of which suspension mode it's in, it's just absolutely fantastic. Over potholes, small bumps, big bumps, this motorcycle just glides. It's wonderful. It's super comfortable when it comes to riding, especially over potholes. I even laughed because David did a whip once, and so did I. Since we were riding on one of those roads, where the speed limit was probably 30, and there were those nasty bumps, because it was somewhere in the mountains, the road had sunk in places. And suddenly I see him, his rear wheel kicked up, he landed sideways. And right after him, I did the same thing, but this motorcycle just handled it and kept going. It was just a blast. The harder you start pushing this motorcycle, the more aggressively you ride it. That semi-active suspension really starts to work, and it stabilizes the bike amazingly well. So even this machine, it's kind of funny. When we were riding it gently at first, it felt kind of sluggish, but once we started really pushing it hard, scraping the foot pegs on the ground, braking aggressively, full throttle, just banging through the gear set, was just glued to the asphalt. Absolutely fantastic. So this motorcycle really has 2 sides to it, or actually you could say it has countless sides to its character. Here I can move on to the gearbox, which in automatic mode, in my opinion, is just... It works better than the MT-09 I tested. They've clearly improved the software here, because the motorcycle no longer upshifts or downshifts while you're leaned over. But still, this automatic mode, it's pretty good. I'm not joking right now. If someone has a problem, I don't know, like limited use of their hand or leg, I had a broken ankle some time ago, and this would have been useful for me, and this gearbox is okay. I'm not saying, that this is a choice just for people with disabilities, but in some ways, it does make things easier. If you don't feel comfortable with your riding skill level, and after riding you just want to focus on accelerating, braking, and picking the right line, then that's fine. But if you're like me, or someone who enjoys sporty riding, you'll appreciate those little buttons. Because the truth is, when we were pushing it today, manual shifting is really enjoyable since you're constantly working those gears. And for example, when you leaned over, you don't have to fumble with your foot. Someone just hit the button, click, 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 click. And honestly, for touring rides on this type of motorcycle, I could have the gears right here on the handlebar. And today I spent 95% of the time shifting manually, and I had a great time doing it. What's cool is the active cruise control, which I also use a few times. On the highway, it really works well, and you know, it can actually serve as a natural way to limit your cruising speed on this motorcycle. You get a buddy in front or a friend who likes to ride at 130, 140 kilometers per h on the highway. You set the active cruise control behind them and just cruise along. It works really well in automatic mode. It shifts gears up and down by itself and so on, and you just ride along. For the early stage of these systems and motorcycles, I think it's already good enough. It doesn't jerk, it doesn't pull, you can trust it. Really, it's just fine. I just used it at the end to relax a little, but the birds are singing. What also impressed me about this motorcycle is its stability when braking and the ABS system. And, you know, and those Yamaha has a lot of systems here with some strange names. I'll describe it in the magazine, but there's even one that stabilizes the motorcycle as you enter a turn. So even if you downshift too aggressively, not only is there a slipper clutch that prevents the rear wheel from locking up, but the throttle will also work to make sure the wheel doesn't lock up in any way, meaning it won't get compressed or stuck. So today I like this motorcycle the most when riding downhill. Surprisingly, usually it's fun to ride uphill, to open the throttle, vroom, vroom, vroom. But I liked it on the descents because going downhill, there was no shortage of power. It just accelerated out of every corner smoothly, really not power, but torque. You know, it really only comes alive at 6,000 or 7,000 RPM. And honestly, revving a touring bike like that just doesn't suit me. Maybe that's the sporty character. Doesn't matter. Going downhill was great because we were even flying over bumps. I could brake hard with the front. And in fact, I was braking with both the front and rear. I was downshifting, bam, 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 bam. And it just stuck to the road so nicely, bam, 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 bam. So braking with this machine is fantastic. The suspension is phenomenal. One of the nicest ones I've ridden. When it comes to touring features, the wind protection, in my opinion, is average, just like on any motorcycle. Good wind protection, you know what? In my opinion, that's what you get with the Hayabusa, because you tuck in behind that fairing and you become like a little egg together with the bike, and then nothing hits you. You can go 300 and woo, it's awesome. If you ride like this, well, I don't know what kind of windscreen you'd need. If you had the windscreen like that, it would just wobble around. That doesn't change the fact that, well, this windscreen is electrically adjustable. Sounds cool, but it was always like that. We were riding fast and it would kind of wobble a bit. Overall, my head wasn't shaking, but here on my shoulders, I could feel the wind resistance everywhere. Legs are decent, pretty good. You know, there is like that wind protection. What's nice in terms of touring features is that there's a little compartment on the side here. You can put your phone in there, and there's a built-in Garmin navigation system that doesn't require any extra subscription fees and works really well. It shows speed cameras and speed limits. It displays beautifully on this screen. I will do what they did for us today. Just get yourself an extra inexpensive Android phone and keep it in there all the time. Just install that app on it, and that would be my phone for the motorcycle, because it would just stay there charging, always on, since for the navigation to work, you need to have that phone. Besides that, the motorcycle is beautifully made and not so beautifully made, because the paint, everything is nice, everything fits together well, but then things like these cables show up. There are cables everywhere. It's basically a whole array of cables. Well, I'm not surprised, because all those switches and electronics have to work with cables. Maybe there should finally be some kind of fiber optic for this or something smarter. In my opinion, it looks terrible. But here, you know, we have a central lock for the panniers, which are quite small, because this is a small motorcycle, so the panniers aren't big either. But there are these little buttons, but there's also a little lock here. Honestly, that didn't impress me either. I don't know if it should have, because, you know, I'm not really that much of a touring rider myself. So you tell me about your experiences with these things. I'm here to tell you how this motorcycle rides and who it might be suitable for. I'm just doing what I can, that's all. The visibility in the mirrors is great. These little blind spot indicators didn't bother me because, for example, in the Multistrada, that golden light really dazzles me, it's always blinking. These ones are subtle, visible, but not annoying in any way. The brakes, the radial master cylinder, the stopping power is just right. And combined with this ABS, it's a blast. The stock Bridgestone T32 tires are fantastic. These Bridgestones are really suitable for both fast and relaxed riding. You don't need to warm them up. They really perform excellently. Here you have preload adjustment. The spring can be set up for luggage, for a passenger, and so on. I'd like to cover everything since I'm on a roll, but I've probably skipped a lot of topics. As for the screen, there are different display modes, which isn't particularly important, but what matters is that it's easy to navigate the settings like raising the windshield or turning on the heated grips. Honestly, navigating through this menu isn't very complicated. Later, when you go deeper and start reading through these systems, they have some abbreviations. You'll need to read the manual for that. But honestly, you should just leave everything turned on because this motorcycle is meant to be, above all, safe, not for messing around or showing off. Strange turn signals, but I got used to them quickly. People complain about them here, but for me, come on, someone probably had to get paid to come up with something new. Look, I invented a new way to turn on the turn signals. It is what it is. Give it a moment and you get used to it. So overall, no matter how you look at it, the motorcycle is a really good machine. You know, that's just the first impression, that it's kind of doughy and you have to put a bit more effort into riding it. That's just how it is. It rides best when you take it easy, simply put. It does have a sport riding mode, but that has to come from you, not from the motorcycle itself. When you ride it calmly, it's super pleasant and enjoyable because you feel safe, it's nice and wonderful. But what am I getting at? What I'm getting at is that Yamaha, with all this technology is about production, right? With all these systems, with these radars. I forgot to mention, this is the most important thing, that those wild headlights, which everyone thinks make this motorcycle look really ugly. In person, I actually see it differently. It's the same as with the MT-09. In person, it really looks nice because the paint is beautiful and so on. As for that, well, I don't know. In person, it looks much better than in the photos. But here's the thing. These headlights are matrix LED lights. Both sides light up at the same time. These illuminate the corners, but that's not all. Here, there's a camera that monitors the surroundings, and when a car is coming from the opposite direction, these headlights cut out a beam of light so as not to blind that car. So, you know, it's like in all those new super cool cars where you drive with your high beams on all the time. Here it's illuminated, and if someone is coming, it cuts out the light so you don't blind them. I don't know how it works in practice because we didn't drive at night, but in the tunnels, I saw how the lights illuminate the corners to the right and left. So I think for touring, who cares what it looks like? This might be the best hit currently in the motorcycle industry because from what Bariwa told me, only Yamaha has something like this. Because if motorcycles have cornering lights, it's just corner illumination, not cutting out the parts where you could potentially blind someone. With all this technology, all these gadgets, they need a motorcycle with a bigger engine, a larger frame, built specifically for that. Because they've squeezed out of this, listen, it's the same as the R9, the same as the MT-09. Well, they've pushed this concept to its limits. If they want to have a true flagship, Yamaha deserves a new FJR 1300, a new Tenere 1200. Simply put, with everything they have now, it's time for a bigger engine that delivers more torque, lower RPMs, the same speed, and so on. Because it's at the limit of what a flagship touring motorcycle can be, you know, just like the R9 is at the limit for a sport bike. Supposedly, yes. But from a flagship, you just want a bit more in this regard. Hi.